the experience I had happened over my elementary school in the town of Benoni in South Africa, which is where I grew up. I want to say it probably happened somewhere between, I was trying to figure this out because I don't remember the exact year, somewhere between 1975 and 1977. So at that time, I would have been between 8 and 10 years old. I remember standing on the corridor, facing out towards the main playground. There was a teacher on playground duty. I still remember who that teacher was. And it's the strangest thing. And people who have had encounters, and I'm not sure if you experienced this when you had your encounter, but people will talk about experiencing things in a certain way. So it was like it wasn't there, and all of a sudden there it was. It just sort of, entered stage right or whatever. It seemed quite low, but again, I was a little kid. And it's almost like you had a forewarning, or you were just somehow made aware, because I was aware of looking up at this thing. Typical UFO saucer shape. The color red stands out in my memory. And I'm pretty sure that's part of the original encounter and not a fabrication of my memory over time, because I do remember my dad asking me to sketch it for him more than once. And I do remember red, the color red just sticks in my memory. You know, when something heats up, like when you see iron heated up and it changes color, and the color seems to be like throughout that piece of metal. The red seemed to be throughout.
Oh, like a glow, almost like a glowing.
Almost like a glow from the inside out. And at that point, I remember, and I don't remember feeling scared.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah. And it's also that thing where I will hear this over and over again, and I'll go, yeah, that's exactly what I remember. The absence of sound.
Right.
Almost as if for a moment, we were in this vacuum. We were in a bubble. And there was
no sounds at all.
No sound. We were just like, there was a complete absence of sound.
Wow.
And I remember looking out across the playground and seeing the teacher and the other kids all looking up at it. And everything seemed to sort of be not in slow motion. It's almost like time was frozen, really.
So fear was not a feeling. Do you remember other feelings?
Not at all. If anything, it was just like a feeling of awe. And because it was such a quick thing, like it almost seemed it just stopped and was there for a split second, or at least it seemed like it was there for a split second, and then it exited. It was gone. And I remember thinking, wow, fast. That was fast. And even at that age, I knew that was incredible, and just like nothing that my brain could make sense of, because, and I'd said this to you in the email, in the time it takes to blink, it was this tiny little red pinprick on the horizon, this pinpoint, and then it was gone. And then all the sound came back. And I saw the teacher and the kids sort of talking to each other, and maybe they were saying, oh, I wonder what that was, But again, because I was I was not the kind of kid who would go running up to a teacher and say, what was that? And really spend time with my peers. I sort of hung back and just watched everybody's reaction. And then that was that. And I guess at some point I must have told my dad, maybe it was the same afternoon, that I went home and said, I saw something strange. I really doubt I would have said UFO because I didn't know what a UFO was. We didn't have TV in South Africa until 1976. And then it was only on for an hour or two a day, and the rest of the time it was the test pattern. So there wouldn't have been any opportunity to really know what any of that was. I never read any material about UFOs. There was nothing that was part of my experience.
So
I've always thought about it. And when you're a child, life goes on.
Yeah.
And you sort of put it in the back of your mind. And I'm not sure when I told my husband. It was probably not long after we were married. And we've been married for 32 years. So, so he's known about it for a long time. But I've always, you know that there's a stigma attached to it. Until recently, I was a tutor in our public schools in the town I live in. So you're not going to mention it to people because there's a stigma attached to it. My children know, and they've never doubted me for a second. And my husband will say to me, because sometimes I'll talk his ear off about UFOs and about all the latest information that's coming out, and I get very, very excited about certain cases, or I'll say, that's exactly what, that specific part of their experience, that's what I experienced. And he's so patient, and he'll just go, yep. And I'll say, I know this just doesn't excite you the way it excites me. And he'll say, you know what, Deb, at the end of the day, I still got a job to go to, a mortgage to pay. So yeah, it doesn't really have an impact on my day to day. I can't give it as much space in my head as you do. And I always say to him, but if you ever have an experience, that'll change. That'll change.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help it. It's just part of, you know what you experienced, and nobody can talk you out of it. And I always think of, is it James Fox's one documentary, I Know What I Saw.
Right.
And those words are so true. I know what I saw.